Well, you need no introduction, but it is my honor to introduce you, Alex Rodriguez, also known as A-Rod. But most exciting is there's a bit of news in your Minnesota Timberwolves venture rather. So tell us, looks like you're closer to full ownership. What does that mean?
Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to Miami. I've been here since I was 9 years old, and I've never seen more people from around the world in the city, which is great. I usually see all my New York friends when I was with the Yankees, all here in South Florida, which is pretty cool. No, the Timberwolves, my partner Mark Laurie and I, we structured a contract with Glenn Taylor to buy the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Minnesota Lynx WNBA team. And, well, that's good luck.
It is. Opa.
And we structured a deal where we locked in the price at $1.5 billion, and we paid over 4 years. Yesterday, we made it official. The second payment is done, so we're 40% in, and we now have a path in the next year to acquire the remaining.
So this is a basketball team, but you're a baseball player.
That's true. You know, it's funny because one of my heroes and mentors is Magic Johnson. And of course, he played basketball for the Lakers for all those years, and he owns a baseball team with the Dodgers. So we always joke around that we did it opposite. I played baseball, and I own an NBA basketball team.
I'm sorry to say I'm a Braves fan.
Okay, well, you guys are good. Well, you guys.
World Series
congrats.
champs.
Yeah.
That was very exciting.
And you might repeat this year.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Inshallah. So on the future of sports team ownership, you have said in the past that blockchain can bring sports teams ownerships to the masses. What does that mean? And are you more or less keen on blockchain now, given the current banking sector turmoil that we've seen in recent weeks?
No, we really haven't gone outside for outside capital, but I will tell you, Suzanne, we've never had, of all the dealings I've done over the last 25 years, I've had people from around the world like literally begging us to get in this deal. And I think the reason why is we acquired this franchise right after COVID, and the NBA was empty with no fans. They had a bubble, and I think it was just good timing. But where TV, the national TV deals, the landscape of sports has changed completely. I mean, nobody ever thought. Glenn Taylor bought this team about 25 years ago for about $94 million, and he sold it to us for $1.5 billion. I do think that in the next 5 years, it'll be hard for anyone to get into an NBA franchise or an NFL franchise for under $5 billion. And the reason I say that is for several reasons. I think gambling is coming fast and furious, and then the TV landscape and the relationship with the consumer is here to stay. And it's no longer just Disney, ESPN, TNT. I believe in the next TV deal, you'll have customers like Apple and Amazon and Netflix, plus Disney and Netflix, all involved. And if you think about who can actually capture the audience, it's live sports. And we've seen that no one does it better domestically than the NFL. And then you have the NBA, you see what UFC's done, PFL, there's all these things around sports. And what sports is a moat, is an octopus of opportunities. And the real business is around the media, is around the real estate, is around merchandise, is about gaming. Sports brings everybody together. And from a political point of view, sports and music, in a world that is so divided, it brings people together. And it's pretty nice to see.
It is such a breath of fresh air as somebody who's spent so much of my career covering politics in Washington, which is just gridlocked. You mentioned mentors. Mentors has been super key to your career success, and your career has been an exemplar of the importance of mentorship and networking. So you said Magic Johnson was one of your mentors. Was that your most crucial mentor, or were there others?
Well, I've had a lot of good ones. Some of them spoke to you, spoke here today. Greg Norman, Barry Sternlicht, Warren Buffett has been a longtime mentor for over 25 years now. But my biggest mentor has been my mother. My mother, who I was raised right down the street in Kendall, single mother, 2 jobs. My father left my 2 siblings and I when at the age of 10. We were lifelong renters of apartment, and I often wondered why we had to move every 18 months. It was because the landlord kept raising the rents. So as a young boy, I remember having the prayer that if one day I can trade places with a landlord, I would. And about a dozen years later, I got an opportunity right down the street, right by Miami Arena, to buy my first duplex. And I was so nervous to buy the duplex. It cost $245,000. And every day in the off season, I would walk by it and make sure that my cream paint with my blue awnings was there, and my 2 tenants would pay my rent. I was a nice landlord. I wouldn't raise the rents. I did get it to market, but that was it. And then over the last 20 years, we've acquired over 20,000 apartment units, over 10,000 single-family homes, and over a dozen hotels. And it started small with a big vision, and I started that out of fear, because I've seen so many of my colleagues go from very down under, build a fortune, and back down to where they started. And I did not want to be that when I was 18, 19 years old. I was starting to think about life after sports.
So you really had the foresight then.
I was fortunate. I mean, ever since I was 7 years old, I've always thought about 2 things, business and sports. And fortunately for me, I've been able to execute on that, surrounded myself with some incredible people. And yeah, we've been fortunate.
Who do you think you've had a crucial role in their lives? Who have you mentored that you've seen kind of grow into something you're proud of?
Well, hundreds of athletes now. It's amazing. Now with social media, you get European soccer players saying, Alex, I see what you're doing. I want to be mentored by you. My office headquarters is in Coconut Grove. We now have over 1,000 people working for us. In headquarters, we probably have about 50, which is the holding company. And I'm very proud. I've put about 50 kids through college, the University of Miami, where I've sat at that board for almost 20 years, and FIU. And it's first-generation immigrants like myself. And when I walk around now, a couple times I've been at Starbucks and someone's tapped me on the back and said, hey, I'm an alum, I'm now an engineer, I graduated from your scholarship program. And to me, that's just as important as the home runs of the World Series.
I love that. So you mentioned your mother as a major influence, and you have 2 daughters. You're the father of 2 daughters. How are your ventures investing in women?
Investing in women? Mm-hmm. Well, I think diversity, it's such an thing. I've been doing diversity for 20 years. Part of it is because, again, coming from a single mother, having 1 sister, having 2 daughters, the leaders of my company, all my partners, the biggest earners are women. And not because they are a punchline or you check the box, is because we're a better company with diversity. And I think is a great compliment to us. It's funny, I was just walking down one of our gyms down in, right down here in Miami, not too far from here. And we're going around and one of my partners says, hey, you don't have bars for women. And I'm like, but what do you mean? You have the Olympic bars, 45 pounds, but she taught me that you have women bar and they're only 35 pounds. And I said, well, there you go. We got in the office the next day and we ordered 10 of them for every gym. But that's just a simple example that we cannot live from a prism of just a male, white male, Spanish male, African-American male. It has to be all kinds. And that makes the company a better place and makes us for better business.
So let's get into some of your investment advice, because I think the people in the room want to hear your tips and tricks. So you've gone from the diamond to the boardroom. What are the investments in your venture portfolio that you think have the potential to have the most impact on humanity?
I acquired a business for about $35 million, and it was a lending business, and it was around ESG and green. And basically, if you own a $10 million building, and you had a $3 million down payment and you had $7 million of debt, but you needed to put money into your building. There wasn't a lot of options. Mezzanine, which in some cases you can pay 15 or 16%. So Petros Pace was a great alternative to Mezz, and instead of being recourse, it was non-recourse. Instead of being 15%, it was only 5 or 6%. Obviously that changes now a little bit with the Fed elevating every other day, it seems like. And we sold that business for almost $400 million to Apollo, and they're taking it, and I'm sure it's going to be a multi-billion-dollar business. But it made buildings better, and it gave optionalities to landlords to be able to improve the building and not get crushed.
So you mentioned interest rate hikes, and obviously the economy isn't exactly one that is giving investors confidence. So what is your advice on investments now in this point in time?
I would just say cash is king, right? And really save, I would say in the sidelines, there's a lot of movement. There's a disconnect right now between sellers and buyers, right? We have a lot of properties we're looking at. We've let owners know that we're buyers. They think it's worth 10. We think it's worth 3. We're now starting to get calls like, hey, we'll sell it to you for 8. We're like, well, we think it's worth 3. We got a call this morning. It's like, I'll sell it to you for 6. I said, we think it's worth 3. And over the next few weeks, we're ready. Then when they say it's 3, we go and we pick it up and we buy it. But there's still a disconnect that's coming closer, but it's not quite there yet, on what people, owners think is worth and what we think is worth.
So there's a lot of buzzwords, and I think AI and ChatGPT is one of them right now. Where are you in terms of, as an investor, where are you when it comes to artificial intelligence?
We have a little tiny investment in it. We got some exposure. We need to get educated. Ironically enough, my 2 daughters, 18 and 14, one goes to Ransom, the other one goes to Gulliver. They know way more about this than me. I guess kids are now using this to kind of cheat and do their paperwork, which is interesting. But our philosophy is we don't ever need to be first in line. I think through our relationships, we are able to get into incredible deal flow. And we rather get in the 3rd inning once we feel the sure thing. We don't need to be in the 1st inning. So right now we're a little bit pause, wait, educate, and see what happens.
Do you not worry about how fast AI seems to be evolving and growing? Do you not worry that we're already potentially behind?
Yeah, I mean, look, a year ago, you would be asking me about Bitcoin and blockchain and XYZ, and a year later, like now everyone's paused on that. We really need to see how things develop in the first early innings before we have real conviction and before we do the work. But we like to stick to our competence, right? And that's what Warren Buffett always taught me, is stick to your circle of competence. That's sports, and that's real estate.
So that sounds like you're not really a risky investor. Is that the case?
I would agree with that.
Do you think that has something to do with being an athlete?
Interesting question. Never thought about that. No, I think from afar, it would look like we're very risky, but you know, I've written the biggest check of my entire life into the Timberwolves. I have incredible conviction. This whole idea of diversity is good to a degree, but I believe that I don't like being wide and shallow. I'd rather be narrow and deep and really concentrated. When I believe in something, I have full conviction. I mean, I've written a check over $200 million in the Timberwolves, and there's probably another, a lot more coming, but it's because I have full conviction, I understand it, and that's why investors want to pour in, because they see my conviction, they see how involved with it I am. I tutor our players, I mentor them, I spend time with them in financial literacy. I really care about the customer experience. And then if you think about Minnesota with the George Floyd, there's also a responsibility in that community to bring people together. Some of the things we're thinking about doing is bringing, police officers and kids from the inner cities into one suite. I get to sit in the middle. I don't want to see cop uniforms. I don't see gang signs. We're all Minnesota Timberwolves, and we're all cheering and facing in one direction.
That sounds like you're really yeah. I mean, that really is the power of sport, right? It transcends politics, and you as an athlete, people listen to you. So I do want to get in. I do want to ask you about something. I would be remiss not to ask you, rather, about an issue that has been plaguing America, and especially as someone who travels between Dubai, London, and Washington, I'm constantly asked about this when I'm overseas, and it's the issue of school shootings. And as a father, I wanted to know if because you believe in the power of philanthropy, clearly, you see that as part of your role as an owner of the Timberwolves, and as a community leader. Do you think there's a way to tackle this on the community level? Because it sounds like, it seems the politicians can't really seem to sort it out.
You mean the guns and the shooting and all that stuff? I mean, obviously it's one of the great catastrophes that we have not only here, but around the world. And, I'm not sure what the answer is. But I do see that the blue and the red do a great job of screaming past each other. And, the truth is about 70%, 80% of the main subjects we all agree on, but unfortunately, the ones that make the most noise are the 5% of the 5%, and they're winning because they have everybody confused. And now with social media, you get to see more of what you believe in. And the truth is, whether you're blue or red, there's a lot of good people, and I'm not very political, but I do believe in policy and putting things in place like we do in sports and we do in music that organize things and brings people together. But I think that's one of our biggest challenges.
Yeah, oh, it is. I've covered far too many of these school shootings. So you're a baseball legend, a business mogul, an investor, a philanthropist, a community leader. You have so many jobs. How do you do it all?
I think focus. You know, it's kind of contrarian a little bit to what you're saying, but you know, I wake up in the morning and say, what are the 2 or 3 things most important to me? I can't make more than 2 or 3 good decisions per day. So really, the narrow and deep thought process is important. Over the last 25 years, we've tried a lot of things. Where we've landed is in 2 things: sports and real estate, and really focusing on that. And then the other part that I've done is having a little bit more balance in my life. Today, I don't touch my phone till noon, right? And I try to focus on, you know, the health, my wellness, hydration, sleep. And I'm in the office every day from 12 to 6 religiously, suit and tie on, because when I put a suit and tie on, it's my replacement to my pinstripes. And it's my uniform, right, to go to work every day. And that's what I enjoy to do. My friends all around the world ask, like, why are you in an office? Are you crazy? You should be on a boat somewhere smoking a cigar. And I said, well, this is my boat and cigar. I love being in the office. I love collaborating with great people. And I also like making a lot of my dreams come true for my team.
Raise your hand if your phone is the first thing you reach for when you wake up.
I know.
I mean, that's amazing. I'm going to try that. We'll see how long I last. So this session is called Mindset of a Champion, and I think we've gotten a bit of an insight into the mindset of a champion. But I wanted to ask you about if you ever had any haters who said you couldn't do all this.
Any what?
Any haters who said you couldn't do all this.
I'm a New York Yankee. Of course I have haters. I have 2 of my heroes just walked in, Steve Wynn, Nelson Peltz. I mean, those guys are the icons. The Titans. You know, I do want to see, I see Nelson Peltz, to see my friend Steve Wynn over there. You know, it's funny because someone asked me about Bob Iger, and of course I see Nelson Peltz, and Bob is one of the great icons and a dear friend. And I was asked about Bob Iger and my admiration for him. And my admiration for him is endless, is infinite. But someone asked me about the challenge of Bob Iger, and I said this to someone because I saw Nelson Peltz so eloquently, you know, get involved, and then he backed away because he got everything he wanted. But you know, when Bob Iger, when he left, we were in a world where spend at all costs to grow. Today, Bob Iger comes back and has cut cost at all to survive. And it'll be really interesting how that world is a paradigm shift. And it'll be interesting to see the CEOs that can survive under this scrutiny and cutting to survive versus spend to grow. And it didn't matter if you lost $100 million or $1 billion per quarter. Wall Street was going to reward you for spending and growing. And today is the exact opposite. So I'm fascinated to see who are the champions in the next 18 months, 24 months. And I would invest with Nelson Peltz because he knows much better than I do.
Well, thank you. This has been a fascinating insight into the life and times of A-Rod.
Thank you.
Do you go by A-Rod?
No, I go by Alex, but it's okay. I've been at Fenway. I've been called a lot worse.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.